requires truth, and we will speak the truth in love, but we will speak it clearly and firmly. So I invite questions, and I have a lot of wonderful... Whoa, no, I don't invite questions. So here are our days of prayer. Let me just put these out there. On the 22nd, we will be praying for labor rights, for fair and living wages, and economic justice. On the 23rd, and by the way, if we start praying and can't stop praying, we'll just stay here.
There'll be a faith leader in this room on each of these days.
Every day to lead the prayer. Pastor Diemer will be here for that day. On the 23rd, praying about education and the criminal justice system. That will be on Saturday. Pastor Eric Brown will lead us. On Sunday, Pastor Al Debelek will be here as we pray for equal protection under the law. We will pray on Monday for our youth as Lisa Ho from Ohio Wesleyan University leads us as a pastor and a leader of youth and young adults. On the 26th, we will pray for women's rights. You've heard from Reverend Lynda Smith. She will be here as our guide in prayer. And on the 27th, we will pray for Medicaid expansion, healthcare, and environmental justice. I will be here on that day along with others. A week from today, the 28th, we will gather on the 3rd Street steps of the Statehouse in a large community prayer at 4:30 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. We invite you to come back and join us. And we have flyers here that explain each day, so if you want to see that written. I just want to lift up one more thing. Here are the states that are involved: Indiana, Alabama, Arkansas, Florida, Georgia, Mississippi, New York, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Tennessee, and Wisconsin. You'll notice that Missouri is missing. Today, as I stand here, I call my brothers and sisters in Missouri to join the moral movement. Are there questions that you have for us? And anyone can answer questions. These are distinguished men and women before you. Yes?
Hi, I'm Jenny Vokes. I would like to know what the long-range plan for action is after the 28th.
All action comes out of prayer. So, I mean, we're working on that. But we begin in prayer. And actually, the long-range action is to continue to come to the Statehouse and to lift up a larger agenda, a moral agenda. So we will be here and we're not going away.
I believe in North Carolina they meet every week.
They have Moral Mondays in North Carolina. Yes, that's true.
It's great to have something that regular.
That since we're a volunteer organization, we're calling on you to take us to every moral day. So that's good. Any other questions?
We also recognize that prayer isn't just about saying words. Prayer is about leading us into action as well. And so as we gather together and see what our resources, those people of faith that come together, and even maybe people not of faith but who understand the moral underpinnings of what we're talking about, because they agree with a lot of what we agree with. So we want to invite all of that participation in the state of Ohio.
I had an old colleague who used to pray on his knees, and he said late in life, he said, I'm not going to go to my knees in prayer anymore. I'm just going to stand on my feet because then I can move faster forward. So I like that. Yes?
In North Carolina, you organized some of the largest demonstrations that state has ever seen, as recently as just back in the winter. And you drew together a rather impressive coalition of groups from with disparate interests, environmental groups, gay and lesbian rights activists, etc., as well as organized clergy and such. Do you expect to achieve that same kind of a coalition here? And what might be some of the first concrete plans to come out of that? Are there particular policies you hope to address?
Well, first of all, like my brother Charles said, he's from North Carolina. I come from a woman who comes from North Carolina. So I'm born into a North Carolinian, but we are not from North Carolina. We are Ohio, and we are here for Ohio. So one of the beautiful things about this movement in my mind, and others may want to address this as well, but one of the most beautiful things about this is that we will form what we will form, and we will come together, and I think the coalition will grow as it did in North Carolina, up from the grassroots. It didn't start outside of the NAACP and out of the clergy who began that movement, but it has grown to that. So that's a hope and a dream, but we begin today with them, and so this is day one. So.
Well, on your press release, you mentioned something about the Medicaid expansion and the need to protect that against being overturned later in the legislature. What steps will you be taking to work on that particular issue, for example?
But you may look upon me and say, I bet at one time it wasn't gray. And I've been at the Statehouse enough years, through the years, that it used to be blonde, actually, this beard you see. This place has made me gray. So I'm here for the long haul, and I think others may speak to that as well. But definitely the agenda of Medicaid expansion is on the front burner. I mean, there's clear legislative issues that we have stood with and that we'll continue to stand with. For example, many of us have soup kitchens that feed the hungry, but the laws in the state about feeding the hungry need to be addressed. We need to end hunger. That's the issue. So we will gather to find legislation and laws that forward the movement of the end of hunger in Ohio. So that's what we're about. Others want to address it.
I think we also are concerned about what are the motivations of those who are making policy decisions in the state of Ohio. Again, many of those decisions end up benefiting those who are already privileged in our state. And what we're asking our elected leaders to do, and praying for them to do, and inviting them to pray about, is to have that moral compass that says, wait a minute, who are we serving here? And who are we missing? And who's falling through the cracks? And we have a lot of Ohioans who are falling through the cracks in health care, Medicaid, jobs, living wage. All of those issues that we're going to be lifting up in prayer are asking our legislators, stop and pray and think about these things. Don't just make decisions that protect those who are already empowered and privileged. It's not about trickling down to those who are already down here. When we care for the least in our communities, we raise everyone up. And that's what we need to encourage our legislators to consider. And that's what we're asking them to redirect their efforts in.
Let me say it another way. I had a young man in my church the other day looking for a handout for food. I had a young man in our church the other day looking for a handout for food, and he looked at me and he said, everyone expects me to pull myself up from my bootstraps. I don't even have boots. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about increased poverty. Have you read what you write? Increased poverty in this land, in this state. And we have to address these things. This just can't continue this way, and we call ourselves moral or humane. Others want to speak. Other questions? And we've been asked to speak from the mic, so thank you.
The press release talks about legislative extremism. Can you talk about what the legislature's been doing, and particularly are you guys trying to oppose a conservative agenda as opposed to pushing for other things? Is this in protest of what the legislature's done, or is this pushing for things that they haven't done?
Anyone want to take that on?
I think what we're calling them to do is to look at both directions. And it's not about just a conservative agenda. It is about decisions that are being made, again, that protect those who are already privileged in our state. And we need to call our legislators to pay attention to those who are most vulnerable. Many of the decisions that are being made right now are directed to politics, not to the people that they serve. And that's the extremism that we have, is political agendas, and that can be on either side. What we want our legislators to be concerned about are those they have been called and elected to serve, all Ohioans.